Hello everyone, welcome to Anime No Me, and thank you for joining us for another One Piece video. Today we're going to talk again about our favorite red-headed man of mystery, Shanks. Now Shanks is one of the most powerful pirates in the world, and could be in fact one of the greatest haki users ever. So few can face him and get out alive after a battle against him. And moreover, he's demonstrated several times that he's able to win fights without any physical confrontation with a pirate or a sailor. But even being incredibly strong as Shanks is, there are people who can match his power or at least exceed Shanks' expectations. For instance, the pirate who managed to give him that big 3-line scar over his eye, which is now really well known around the world and become a symbol that everyone who loves One Piece recognizes. In today's video, we're going to talk about how Shanks got this very famous scar on his face and other possible scars that he may have on his body because of other confrontations he may have had during the past. But before we dive into today's video, if you're new to the channel, we'd be absolutely honored if you consider leaving us a like or even subscribing with a comment letting us know what you thought of the video. It really helps us out and motivates us to make more content. And if you'd like to help out the channel in a bigger way, consider sharing the video with a friend. But without further ado, let's get into the video. So friends, as we all know, Shanks is one of the strongest characters out there, but it's really not known if he was, say, a prodigy or if it's just because of the fact that he was part of the King of the Pirates crew. Even from a very young age, we know that he was raised up, and although they were very protective of him, we really don't know what kind of fights he could have gotten into. So it could be that just a few years after leaving the crew of the Pirate King and observing his former captain, Shanks then went on to learn about swords, or were perhaps trained by the Pirate King himself or even other members of the crew. For instance, Rayleigh could have taught Shanks all of his knowledge about haki. Through this knowledge, he became more and more powerful, improving the 3 types of haki that he possessed, and he tried over the years to become as strong, or if not stronger, than his former captain. And over the course of his journey to gain his strength and become a great pirate captain, he ended up acquiring several rivals, and one of them was the incredibly sword skillsman named Mihawk. And for a long time, the two went back and forth trying to figure out who was the greatest swordsman in the world. And over the many battles these two must have had for this title, they always probably ended in a draw. Therefore, it's really possible that either of them do actually have scars or cuts that one made on the other. After all, we know that scars are not always visible, but Oda tends to draw scars that symbolize something very important to the story or create a unique design for a character. For example, Luffy could have had several scars on his body during the journey because he's been cut, punctured, been scratched, tried to be electrocuted, and through all of these attacks, they could have left many different scars on his body. But Oda really only ends up featuring 2 scars. The one that's underneath Luffy's eye that he gave to himself as a child, and of course the large scar on Luffy's chest that Akainu gave to him because of what he went through at Marineford in trying to save Ace. So it may be possible that Shanks and Mihawk have scars that one made on the other that we just haven't seen or been revealed yet. Shanks may have also acquired other scars in confrontations against the other Yonko, because we know that the 4 had to have come into conflict even if it was just in the past. And maybe even they looked to try and show each other who was the strongest among the 4. Even Big Mom has said that it would take all the pirates in her crew and allies with the giants of Elbaf to even have a chance to defeat Shanks. And this hints that she may in fact know Shanks' true strength. In the past, Big Mom might have even fought Shanks, but this fight probably didn't end in a victory from Big Mom because they might have just given up because something else might have gotten in the way and made it so they couldn't continue the fight. During the confrontation that was going on during the Battle of the Best in Marineford, we know that Kaido was going to Marineford because he wanted to end Whitebeard's life. But Shanks, knowing what Whitebeard was about to do, intercepted Kaido before he arrived at Marineford. It's also worth mentioning that Shanks somehow managed to know exactly where Kaido was, and then with his crew got to Kaido and stopped him, who was accompanied by King. Now we don't really know if there was a fight between them, but there probably wasn't one because Shanks did show up in Marineford without any visible injuries. Now at the very least, we know that Shanks and Kaido had to have had some conversation, because Shanks probably told Kaido that if he chose to go to Marineford, he would have to go through him first. And if Kaido took on Shanks, he knew that first off, this might not be worth it, and also it would probably make him too late to face Whitebeard when he got to Marineford. There also could have been a different confrontation between Kaido and Shanks much longer ago, because he does seem to know Shanks' strength. After all, the Yonkos did have to know how each other was to maintain the balance of power. So at the very least, we know that there had to be some kind of confrontation, because in one of the times where we see Kaido thinking back to the people who were able to injure him, we do see Shanks among all of the other people there in his memory. Aside from speculation, the only actual confirmed confirmed scene is there was a short little scene in the anime where we see a sword collision between the two of them where it did split the sky in half. But besides this brief confrontation, there could have been other confrontations in the past, especially as Shanks was coming up in the ranks before he became a Yonko. But going back to Whitebeard for a second, we also have to know that there had to be some kind of collision or confrontation between Shanks and Whitebeard. But over the years, they probably came to some kind of agreement or at least friendly understanding, because Whitebeard would have known that Shanks came from Roger's crew, and Whitebeard had a great amount of respect for Roger. We also saw that when Shanks went to go see Whitebeard to talk to him, we saw that there was a very pleasant exchange between the two, but that they both exercised amazing amounts of hockey. So much so, in fact, that as Shanks walked onto Whitebeard's boat, there was physical damage actually done to the vessel. But even as members of Whitebeard's crew passed out or frothed at the mouth, Whitebeard wasn't even bothered. In fact, he goes on to show hospitality to Shanks when they have a serious talk. During the discussion, Shanks tries to explain to Whitebeard how Ace was in serious danger for being after Teach. But at this point, Whitebeard gets quite enraged because he then shouts that he wouldn't allow a traitor to leave his ship unharmed. So Whitebeard wanted Teach to suffer at Ace's hands. But even though this quick conflict rose up, nothing really happened and Whitebeard ended up sitting down and remained calm. But considering the fact that Whitebeard and Shanks' Conqueror hockey was probably about at the same size or level, we could probably assume that each of them would be able to leave marks on the other. But finally, we need to talk about the only scar of Shanks that is visible in his appearance. And we've always seen Shanks with this large scar on the right side of his face, like there were 3 bladed claw marks going down across his eye. Now at first, many members of the community wouldn't have believed that this scar was due to anything natural because Shanks is so strong, and even though we know so little about him, he's always been alluded to be this great, powerful force. But it's during Shanks' discussion with Whitebeard where we finally get the answer to where this iconic scar came from. And according to Shanks, that very scar on his face was caused by Teach. Now many might think that Teach wouldn't have the ability to do this because Shanks really seems to be much more powerful than Teach. Shanks is an expert swordsman, so his reflexes have to be quite sharp, and he would be able to predict Teach's movements because of his observation hockey or even his conquerors. But according to Shanks' own words, he wasn't distracted, and yet still Teach managed to cut his face. And considering the placement of the scar on Shanks' face, we can conclude that Teach was facing Shanks when he gave it to him, meaning that Teach has some kind of ability or strength that Shanks can't account for. And Shanks also says that among all of his scars, it is that scar on his face that hurts him the most. We also saw that when Shanks arrived in Marineford to stop the conflict, he ended up having a brief moment of talking to Teach. In this conversation, Teach states that he made the scar on his face, saying that it looks very good on Shanks because it gives him a more threatening appearance. And after saying this, he ended up backing off because his real goal had already been accomplished. But over the years, this scar of Shanks has really become a trademark of his, and many people recognize him just by seeing the scar. In fact, it features prominently in the images for the film that is coming out later this summer, One Piece Red. In the film of One Piece Red, we're hoping that we're going to get a lot more information and background on Shanks, and hope that it may even show us how Teach managed to make the scar on Shanks, since the cover of his scar is highlighted, symbolizing that this movie will really focus on Shanks. So during this movie, hopefully we'll find out a lot more about our red-headed man of mystery, how he got his scars, and even other possible enemies and showdowns that he's had on his rise to become a Yonko. We also have to remember that this movie is totally canonical or canon, so we know that Oda did create the story of this mover and is also the overall producer of this movie. So every event that we see in One Piece Red will be something that we can count and to reveal our history of Shanks. Also, one last thing to consider is that as much as Whitebeard said that he had asked Ace to go after Teach, and also seemed not to really care about what Shanks said about Teach, we know that Whitebeard knew the truth, especially about what Shanks said about the power of his former crewmate. We also saw in the manga that he really didn't want Ace to go after Teach, but Ace insisted and ended up going in the end. And in the end, not only did Teach end up with 2 devil fruits, but it seems that he also possesses some unknown power that allowed him to hurt Shanks. But with that, my friends, let us know what you think about it. What do you think we might see in One Piece Film Red? Do you think that Shanks may have a darker secret or other scars? And what do you think really happened between him and Teach? Let us know in the comments below. So as we wrap up our video, I want to thank you so much for watching all the way till the very end. Make sure you comment on any themes or ideas that you'd like to see in future videos. And also, since you've made it this far, give us a like as you head out to take on the rest of your day. Hope to see you all in our next video, and let's keep sailing this giant sea together. Take care.